Hello again, YouTube. Today's project is removing the rear wheel from my 2014 Can Am Spyder RT, and I'm gonna try to keep this as short as possible, but let you know every step. I might fast forward or skip taking, bolts clear out, all the wrenching, but every step I'll try to have in here. To prepare for this, I loosened the clamp going from the my cat delete pipe, it might be your catalytic converter, to the muffler, so I can pull this muffler or swing it out of the way when I'm getting the brake caliper off, and also when I'm torquing the axle nut. So in preparation for this, I did that. I also removed my body panels on this side. I do have a Doc Humphreys belt tensioner or vibration dampener on here. I'm gonna be removing that as soon as I found what I did with these bolts. I'm gonna attempt to manipulate my belt tension a little bit to minimize the vibration. So I'm taking this off because I've got almost 20,000 miles on it. The roller needs replaced, and Doc Humphreys went into hiding. So I do have a Le Monster belt vibration dampener, which is a stock Can Am one, the updated model, so it's a better design anyway. And then he added a better double roller for it. So if I can't get rid of my belt vibration, I'll put his on, but I do have it just in case. So if you have a vibration dampener, you need to have the tension off the belt when we start. So here we go. To start with, the last time I did this, I did not take the Heim joint loose for the ACS system. So it's basically the ride position sensor, where it tells the computer how much air to put in the bag depending on how much weight you have on the bike. And I did not take the shock bolt out. This time, just to make sure I'm not going to hurt anything, I am going to remove the Heim joint, but I'm not going to remove the shock bolt because I didn't need to last time, so I'm not going to do it this time. Heim joint's loose and up out of the way. That's a 10 millimeter, by the way. These axle nuts are 36 millimeter, and I just ordered these off of eBay. So I bought two, cut one in half, because why wouldn't you? And these are 160 foot-pounds, so it's not on there gently anyway. Be careful of your ABS sensor wire and the brake hose going to your rear caliper when you're getting it loose. So I'm just loosening it up for now. Because I had a hitch on here, which I already removed my hitch, I didn't have the cotter key in there. Normally there'd be a plastic cap, cotter key, a plastic cap on each side. So let's see, now I'm going to jack it up a little bit until the tire is just off the ground. I'm going to let it back down to where it's just touching, just to put that axle in a neutral state. Basically where I'm jacking is right on the rear of the frame, where your catalytic converter has the bushings to tie into the frame. Now I'm going to get this brake caliper loose. there is an ABS sensor here. I am going to leave that for now. We'll see if I end up having to take it loose. I don't remember taking that off before the last time I did this. So I've got a Kumo Exta AST tire, which you can see is pretty bald. I got right at 15,000 miles on this. I did really like it, but that's not what I'm going with this time. And honestly, I'm not sure what I'm putting back on here, but I'll explain that a little later. Oh, and do not have your parking brake set, because of course we're going to remove the caliper. Okay, so the rear bolt, or it'd be the front bolt on the caliper. Oh, and these are 16 millimeter. You can get to between the parking brake and the brake line going to the caliper. So we'll break that one loose. And they are pretty tight, so oh geez, sorry. So if you notice on the ABS sensor, there is a shim in there, or several it looks like. There's also a possibility you have shims behind the, between the caliper and caliper mount. So pay attention to if you have shims come out, where they came from. Looks like I do not have any shim on that bottom bolt. And the two caliper bolts are the same. Now I'm going to slide the caliper off. And I have no shims. I'm just going to hang this here so it's not hanging on the lines and kind of keep it out of the way. Yeah, I think that'll work. I'm not going to remove the ABS sensor. Get this nut clear off here. So the theory is, doing it this way, we're going to not touch the adjustment. So this side adjustment, and I'm going to end up adjusting it a little bit because my belt's riding a little bit far to the left. We're going to pull the axle, change the tire, put the axle back in, and never touch the adjustment, so it's going to be right back where it was to start with. Okay, see if the axle's loose. Looks like I need to move my jack a little bit. So here you see the caliper mount and the bushing there. So just keep an eye on stuff as we're pulling the axle out of it. Okay, now just slide the belt off. So now I'm going to jack it up. And the only reason I have it up on ramps is just so I don't have to bend over so far when I'm working on stuff. So you don't have to have it up, the front up on ramps. So we just got to get this up high enough to get the tire out from under the rear fender. I think that'll work. Okay. Now I'm going to take this sprocket off. There's an O-ring on the center of the hub, and then these. I am going to mark it though, in case I go back where I was, or with this same wheel. The last time I did it, I didn't mark it, and when I put it back together, I put it together one off, so I didn't notice I did that until I went to put air in it. See, my valve stem's uncovered by the sprocket, so she's marked now. If you don't mark these, you can't put them in wrong. They just may not be in the same position they were in before. So I'm just going to number them here. This is just a I don't know what they call it. It's not chalk, it's kind of a pasty marker. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and make some decisions here. Okay, here is my old tire, the Kumo X to AST, which I had no problems with. Since I mounted that, I've put on the Vredestein Quatrac 5 on the front, and I don't have enough good to say about these things. I did the little wider size. I put on 175 55s. I think the originals were 165 55s or 50s. Haven't had any issues with these, but I just really like them. So I had decided to put one of these Vredestein tires on the rear when this one wore out, and I have it. I ordered it, but in the meantime the hub on these 14s and older are a two-piece wheel. So they have the hub, this part bolts into the wheel, and I got a really good deal on a brand new one-piece wheel. They changed sometime in 15, I believe, or late 15. And I've done my due diligence. I've measured everything out with the sprocket in, sprocket out. I used the axle to mark, measure. I measured this depth. I looked up part diagrams online, and everything except the wheel looks like it's all the same part. So this wheel came with a brand new Kenda tire, which I swore I'd never put on, but I basically got a free tire when I bought this wheel. So for the 7,000 miles that this will probably last. I'm going to use it, and then I'll mount that Vredestein on this, and basically have a spare wheel that when my bearings need replaced, I can have that all ready to go. I won't have to pause when I change a tire. So I'm not saying this is a good idea or the thing to do, it's just what I'm doing. When you have the wheel out is a good time to clean everything up. Of course, my brake pads are not wore out. It's 1 millimeter is where the limit is for wear, but this one end of this one is getting close. So I'm going to get brake pads, and I'll do a video on replacing all the brake pads on this thing here pretty soon. It's also a good time when the wheel's not in there to look around the air spring, the airbag, and make sure there's no rocks in there. I blew it all out around there with a air hose. I also carefully slid these back and blew all the dust that had accumulated in there, blew it out, and sprayed some lubricant on the threads of this adjuster bolt. So let's put this thing back together. I'm going to grease up the seal, or just put a little bit of grease here on the seal, and then in the bearing, and the same here, and then just a little bit around this O-ring where the sprocket goes over it. And get these put in. And then a little white lithium grease on these where they make contact with the in between those dampers, just to make it slide together easier. Supposedly the white lithium grease isn't hard on rubber. And then I'll also put some grease on this spacer and put it back in the way it came out. Let's see if it'll fall out here. Nope. So since this is a different wheel, orientation on my grease pen mark doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna make it so I have a gap in there where the valve stem is. And then roll it over that O-ring on that hub on the wheel, get it seated. Okay. Just a little bit of grease on this seal. I should have had these cleaned up. just going to get the belt around the hub or the sprocket, and I'm going to gently let it down a ways here. Here we go. Coming down. Of course, it's moving away from me as I come down, so keep everything in line here. Getting close. Close right there. I think what I'll do, I maybe shouldn't have put the belt on yet. Leave the belt back there. Leave it off. And see if I can get this thing started. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this glove. Jeez. There it comes. I had to pick up this caliper mount just a little bit with the end of my finger. Alright. So this is a 36 millimeter, I think it's a fuel filter socket I got from O'Reilly's for like a Ford diesel. It was like 10 or 11 bucks. So I am gonna take advantage of that baby. Maybe. So I'm just getting the axle snug here before I get the belt on and start actually tightening it up. Okay. Now I'm going to pick it back up. I've got that belt guard. Let's start with the bottom. And then just roll it on. Okay. You can see my cap's loose, and the way that works is the nut for this bolt is captured between those two slides that the axle goes through inside this channel. So I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to use it to tighten that up, right? And then this one's tight, so then I'm just going to keep going like an eighth of a turn at a time here. It worked its way loose again. So the goal is to make everything exactly like it was when you took it apart. So this side basically adjusts your belt tension, and then this side adjusts the alignment of the belt. Once you have, because you always want to have your belt tension set first. So this side adjusts the tension on the belt, this side adjusts the wheel, so it adjusts your belt alignment, or your rear wheel alignment. I'm just going to keep going a little bit at a time, and it wants to, so it's loose again. What I'm doing is just driving that axle forward. I have to get it bigger. Tight, and of course this side's going to be tight because the belt tension is holding that side of the axle forward. It's got a little bit of play in it. Doesn't feel like it has any. Give another tap for good measure. And I'm going to get it pretty snug just with this little sharp wrench. Okay. So we're snug there, snug here. Now I'm going to put the caliper back on before I torque the axle nut. I need to make some room. Stay. And I'm going to use blue or medium. This is JB's version of Permatex or Loctite. When I do the video on the brakes, we'll talk about parking brake adjustment too, because we'll have to kind of reset that. And then I'm going to do a video on bleeding the brakes also. Okay, I'm not going to torque that quite yet because I'm going to torque the axle nut first. Still snug. Axle is 160 foot-pounds of torque. And see, since I have the muffler loose, it'll allow me to get a torque wrench in here. 160. And then the caliper is torqued. These caliper bolts are torqued to 77 foot-pounds. I would tell you the Newton meters, but I don't care about Newton meters. Alright. And pause for a phone call. And don't forget to hook up the heim joint again on the ride height sensor for the ACS. Okay, well, I'm going to pull that vibration dampener off and put this thing back together and go take it for a little ride and see where my belt's riding. I took it out for a little ride, and the belt is riding out further than I'd like. I pulled it in here and backed it up a little bit. It's I'd like it to be a little closer than this. It was riding actually further out when I stopped out on the street and checked it. So I did check the belt tension after I got that vibration dampener off and brought it back in here, and I'm right at 160 with one of those Cricket belt tensioner tools. So I'm going to leave that there because that's right around where it's supposed to be, and so I'm not going to mess with this side. What I'm going to do is loosen this axle nut again. So in order to get it to ride closer to the flange, I need to move the axle forward on the right side. If it was riding too tight against this flange, you'd move it back on the right side. So basically, you think about that axle, you'd want it to come back to get it away from the flange. To get it closer to the flange, we're going to go forward with it. So in order to get this forward, I need to back off this bolt, and I'm going to go about 1/8 of a turn and then tighten it all back up and take it out and see what difference it makes. So here we go. Oh. I loosened up my muffler again so I can re-torque this thing. Okay, I'm going to go like that. Then I'm just going to back it off, not a 1/4 turn. I'm going to go 1/8 of a turn. And then we're going to use Mr. Hammer. I think I'm going to have to loosen that up just a little more. Okay, I took it out and didn't really make any difference with the whole 1/8 of an inch or 1/8 of a turn. So I brought it back. I ended up going almost a 1/2 a turn and tightened everything back up, went out, and it's right where I want it now. It's right at a little over 2 millimeters. I did the second time. Where'd my wrench go? So when you loosen the muffler when you're working on this, instead of just leaving it loose so it flops around and then you gotta move it, if you just pull it out and then snug it back up, you have room to work on everything, get your wrench in, and not have it getting in your way all the time. So might help you save a little frustration anyway. So I'm going to put it back where it's supposed to be because I am done. And I'm not going to put my hitch back on because I am going to put new brake pads on this and bleed the brakes. Stand by for those 2 videos. Have a great day. Bye.